UFC 312 is a very good fight card. We have 2 title fights. We have a rematch in the main event that was coming off the heels of what could have been Fight of the Year in 2024. The co-main event has the best wrestler in the division taking on the long-standing champion. The rest of the card might not have the biggest names in the sport, but it is certainly action-packed with lots of really fun matchups. My name is Angelo. This is We Want Picks, and I'm going to break down the entire UFC 312 fight card, giving you my picks, predictions, and DraftKings Plays. But before I do that, let me unveil the Event Simulator. The Event Simulator is a tool on our website right now ready for you. If you're a premium member, you already have access. We opened the floodgates last Friday. What the Event Simulator does is it takes all the fights on the card and it simulates them 100,000 times, and then it gives you those outputs. It simulates the fights using everything you can imagine. Striking stats, biometrics, grappling stats, historical DraftKings fantasy scoring, implied probability. All of those factors come in here. They fight the hell out of each other 100,000 times in some universe, and then the results are spit out. And the proof is in the pudding. We released this last Friday, less than 24 hours before UFC Saudi Arabia. And JLB in our Discord, a premium member, sent me a DM. He effectively said, thank you for the Event Simulator. I typically play close to 200 DraftKings lineups every week. I saw your video about the Event Simulator and I was intrigued. I decided to give it a shot on some smaller contests. 70 lineups, and he hit the optimal score in the 50-cent mini-max. So he saw the Event Simulator, said, let me give it a shot. I'm only going to do the 50-cent lineups. He did 70 of them, so $35 out the door. And he made over $400. If you're new to DraftKings Fantasy, hitting optimal is quite literally the best you can do. There is a math equation that says this is the best possible formula. This is the best possible lineup anybody could have ever built. And that's what this Event Simulator did. He said he was using SaberSim, which is another event simulator. And now he may be moving to just this. SaberSim is $295 a month. $295. Take a wild guess how much the Event Simulator is. It's included in your premium membership. We added a brand new tool, an incredible tool that proved itself week 1, and we didn't touch the price point. Premium membership is only $10, $10, and that's for an entire month. We are in the throes of a 16-week event stretch with no breaks whatsoever. If you sign up for premium membership right now, you will have full access for a month. Today is, let's take a look, February 7th. You will have full access till March 7th. Every event along the way, everything in the mix. All the picks, the bets, the tools, and everything else. We didn't touch the price point, and we never will. Here's a closer look at Event Simulator. You essentially come in here. This is built out for the future. We're at UFC 312. Let's focus on UFC 312. What you're going to see here is every single matchup, and then the implied probability. These are the win probabilities from the outside world. You could come in and adjust. This says Dricus du Plessis is going to win this fight 65% of the time. The chance of him winning in round 1 is only 15%. I can make adjustments. Let's say I think Dricus wins 75% of the time. I will make that adjustment, and it will go ahead and dynamically change for me. Now what I'm going to do is work my way down and say, you know what? Let's run this simulation. Now they are fighting in some fake universe 100,000 times, and the tool is going to spit out the results. I can deep dive those results. I can say, you know what, let me see Dricus. I want to see his DraftKings fantasy points. Actually, you know what, let me see the strikes. And I want to see the submission attempts. So we have all that data there. Now we're going to come down and we could actually build our DraftKings fantasy lineups. So I'm going to look at this and we're going to add some points to Dricus because I think Dricus wins this fight and I think he scores pretty well. Let's say I want to remove or add a fighter. Let's unselect Taliesin Teixeira. Let's say I don't think he's going to score anything. I don't even want him in any of my lineups. Then we'll go ahead and we'll add a few points to Aleksandre Topuria because I think he's going to do better than the simulator thinks he will. This is just imaginary decision making, but you get the idea. Now I click build lineups and it went ahead and it built these lineups for me. Here are the DraftKings lineups. I can see each fighter, the percentage of lineups that fighter is in. So given the criteria that I put out here, I'm very exposed to Dricus. If I want to adjust that, I can come back up here and make some adjustments. And if I'm ready, I click download CSV. It spits out the lineups. I upload them to DraftKings and I am off to the races. The event simulator is available right now. The event simulator worked last week for the people who used it, and I'm encouraging you to use it this week. Just go to DraftKings in the menu, click Simulator. If you're a premium member, it's included. You don't have to change a thing. If you're not a premium member, become one. It's $10. Go to WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member. And it's not just random fantasy tools. It's also a full suite of other tools that will give you insight and information. It's a full suite of picks and bets and breakdowns. Everything you could ever want or need heading into a fight week. $10 for an entire month. WeWantPicks.com, click Become a Member. Let's go ahead and break down this card. We did lose a fight. We lost a fight. The Park and Tumendabero fight was canceled. It was canceled before the weigh-ins. The rumor was that Nyam Tumendabero was having weight issues, and they just said, screw it, scrapped it, and we moved on. So we're down to 12 fights, and that was a little tricky for me because I thought Nyam was a great underdog, especially at this price point. But it is what it is. We move on. Let's go ahead and open up this card with Quillan Salkilld, and he's taking on Anshul Jubli. Salkilld is making his UFC debut here. He is a tremendous favorite. Betting odds-wise, the line is completely out of control. And there's a lot of outside factors that I'll touch on in a second. But if we're just looking at him and his skill set, pretty well-rounded guy. He uses kicks pretty well, decent striker. He likes to manage range. He'll work the body. If you're comfortable striking with him, he'll lower his level. He'll shoot some takedowns. Overall, well-rounded guy. He can fight at distance. He can fight in the pocket. He's perfectly fine with an ugly fight. Sometimes he will chase a finish instead of settling in, could lose position. But overall, he's definitely a good prospect, well-rounded guy, pretty aggressive, can win fights in multiple places. He's taking on Anshul Jubli. And you guys are going to look at this. And you're going to say, wait, this is the guy that got barked at and quit? And unfortunately, yes, that is what happened. He was beating Mike Breeden. He was winning this fight. He was a very large favorite. He was winning this fight. And then Mike Breeden started barking at him, literally barking at him. And Anshul just froze and didn't know what the hell to do with that. So he froze and ultimately lost. What I will say, that freezing and the losing and the getting barked at has artificially deflated his line. People saw that. And now they're like, he sucks, he's terrible, he's useless. I disagree. Anshul Jubli is a good fighter. The other thing that's happening is people saying he's from India. There's not a lot of good fighters from India. I disagree with that as well. I think the circumstances going into that last fight were just tricky. It was his official UFC debut. There's a lot of pressure. He just won the road to the UFC tournament. That's what this knockout is over Viacheslav guy. He won that tournament. He's a huge favorite. UFC debut, lots of outside pressure, essentially representing a nation because it's not like India has tons of fighters in the UFC, so there's always extra pressure when you're a pioneer in that regard. So now he has all this extra pressure. He's in his UFC debut. He's winning. He's feeling himself. And a dude starts barking at him, which completely throws him for a loop. So no, he doesn't suck. And yes, it was very unfortunate that this dude just froze and did nothing and ended up getting finished. All of that being said, if you put your biases aside, you may still end up in the same boat, right? I still ended up with Quillan winning by putting the biases aside. But I do think Anshul Jubli can win this fight. He's not a bum. He's not terrible. He's a good, well-rounded fighter. I think he loses this fight because Quillan's forward pressure, Quillan's ability to mix up strikes and takedowns, to fight at distance and in the pocket. But Anshul Jubli should definitely have some exposure in your DraftKings fantasy lineups because he could definitely win this fight. And I would take advantage of the random public bias here and have a little bit of room there. If you're using the event simulator, I would add some points to Anshul Jubli. I would definitely increase the bias there because I think you need some exposure to him in your lineups. There's a very real possibility he wins this fight. I am picking Quillan. I'm picking him. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, Jubli sucks. He doesn't suck. Just a wild circumstance in his first fight. And we've seen a lot of massive favorites go down the last couple of weeks. So, interesting fight to start the card. We'll learn a lot about both these men right off the rip. Then we have Kevin Jousset taking on Jonathan Micallef. Kevin Jousset, probably my most confident pick on the card. Now, picks, bets, and DraftKings fantasy entries are completely different things, right? If I'm picking somebody to win, that doesn't necessarily mean I would bet on them, and that doesn't necessarily mean that there's value in DraftKings fantasy for that person. Kevin Jousset might check all the boxes, though, because I do think he wins here. Overall, he's a pretty good fighter. He's a stalky striker. He's going to plot forward. The hands are low. The volume's not incredible, but he comes in. He closes the distance. He likes to work you to the cage for control. He will work takedowns. He's a high-level judo practitioner, So he'll toss you on your ass, although he does use the judo mostly for defensive purposes. So he's a hard guy to take down. He's big. He's strong. He's got good striking. Overall, he's a good fighter. Kevin Jousset did just get smacked around a little bit by Brian Battle, but the reality was he looked pretty good in that fight. I think he won the first round. He looked pretty good, and it was the unrelenting, ridiculous pressure of Brian Battle that ultimately broke him. And also the extra pressure of fighting at home, I'm sure didn't help. But he got that loss out of the way, and I think he's going to be here and he's going to do good things. Last little note here. Somebody commented, listen, we do 400 to 500,000 views a month on YouTube across all of the videos. And obviously we get thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of comments in the course of a week or a month. I can see some, I can't see all. It's a whirling dervish of comments. Somebody commented, judo doesn't matter unless you're wearing the Juno clothes. First of all, it's not called judo clothes. Second of all, I completely disagree. I get the overall point. If I have a high-level judo practitioner and a high-level wrestler, I'm taking the wrestler every day of the week. But if I have a high-level judo practitioner and then just a regular person who doesn't have a long history of college or international wrestling experience, I'm going with the judo. And you don't need the gi. I personally think that the gi can be beneficial, but the judo that Kevin uses, working the underhooks, keeping his hips stable, staying up, that judo is very beneficial in MMA. Go ask Kayla Harrison if she needs to wear the gi, the judo clothes for her fist fight. So I do think the judo here is very helpful, and it is a factor into this breakdown. He's taking on Jonathan Micallef. Jonathan Micallef, okay striker. Pretty good wrestler, though. Striking is basic, solid 1-2, some distance closing to get the takedowns. On the ground, he's not even looking to finish. He's really just looking for control, good pressure. He's not very dangerous, but he is solid, and he does a good job controlling the pace and keeping you where he wants to keep you. The fact that he's not dangerous is really helping me here pick Kevin Jousset, because even if Jonathan has some early success with a takedown or two, I think Kevin can stay safe, work his way out, do better things on the feet, ultimately frustrate, slow down Jonathan Micallef. The real concern here would be some hometown scoring, right? Jonathan's the local guy, and maybe he gets a couple of takedowns, does nothing with them. Kevin's controlling the striking, doing more with that, and all of a sudden the judges think wrestling is the most important thing in the world, where meanwhile, according to all of you, wrestling doesn't matter, takedowns don't matter. So my only concern would be a hometown judge's decision, but we got pretty lucky in Saudi Arabia with some solid decisions, and I think we will here as well. Kevin Jousset's going to be the pick, but I don't think I'm going to put him in a DraftKings fantasy lineup. I'm a little torn there because he's one of my most confident picks on the card. But if he can't finish Jonathan, it's just going to be a good amount of striking and defending takedowns. So we'll see how the rest of this card plays out. Then we have one of the most, no, we're not going to skip to Cody Steele. We'll go to Cody Steele, Rongzhu. Then we got Cody Steele taking on Rongzhu. Cody Steele making his UFC debut. He's an interesting guy because he had name notoriety for a little while there. He was supposed to fight Komal Otani, the first person to ever beat Poatan. The first person that ever beat Alex Bejeda was supposed to fight Cody in the Contender Series. Cody's ready. His hands are wrapped. They wrap Komal Otani's hands, and he just said, yeah, I'm done. I don't care about this. I'm out of here. I'm done. The nerves got to me. I'm gone. He literally just left. So then, obviously, that news circled, and Cody built a little bit of a name for himself, came back, got another fight, won that fight. Now he's making his UFC debut. He's a good grappler. He's got big takedowns, good chain wrestling, relentless pressure. He does a really good job creating scrambles, making a mess, and then making something happen. His striking is not excellent, but he is solid. He's got good fundamentals, and he's comfortable both at distance and inside the pocket. He is taking on Rongzhu. Rongzhu is a decent striker. He's got some very real power. He picks his shots well. He marches forward. He likes to dictate the pace, and he can be a killer if he dictates the pace. But if he's backing up and if he's fighting off his back foot, he doesn't nearly have that same level of success or comfortability. Rongzhu can knock almost anybody out, but he gets hit a ton. He's got that negative striking differential. He does have some offensive takedowns, more than 2 per fight on average. I think Rongzhu loses this fight, though. I think we're going to be in a situation where Cody Steele's backing him up. Cody Steele's shooting a bunch of takedowns. Rong's just going to eventually just start planting and bombing away, hoping for the best, and it's not going to work out for him. Cody Steele is going to be the pick, and I will have him in my lineup because wrestlers score really well, and I think he's not only going to get the takedowns, but control the pacing and really put up some solid numbers. So Cody Steele is the pick and will be in the lineup. And then we have Aleksandre Topuria, Ilia Topuria's older brother, and he's taking on Cody Colby Thicknesse. And I think it's Thicknesse, actually, but Thicknesse, either way. Pretty cool last name. Quick little fact about Aleksandre Topuria. They just did an interview. I don't know when the interview was done, but I just saw it, of Aleksandre and Ilya. They interviewed the both of them. And they are, real-life brothers, obviously. And I don't know if you have a sibling, but I do. And I'm 100% sure I could break that little dweeb's neck. Not a if, and, or but about it. I will break his little dweeby neck. But that makes sense. I'm the much larger, bigger, older brother. I've been doing combat sports. I got my friggin' started jiu-jitsu in 2002. I've wrestled my entire life. Of course, I could break that dweeb's neck. And even he knows it. The Topuria brothers have a different dynamic because Ilya Topuria is one of the best fighters on planet Earth. And his older brother, Aleksandre, isn't quite as accomplished. He even has a loss on his record. And they asked him, hooked up to a lie detector, could you beat up Ilya? And he's like, 100%. Not a doubt in my mind, I would beat the shit out of that guy. And Ilya's right there. He's like, you can't really believe that. He's like, oh, I believe it. I would beat your ass. And they pulled up the lie detector, and the lie detector test determined that was not a lie. Aleksandre Topuria is that confident he will beat the shit out of his brother. And that type of confidence comes from two different places. One, just being an older brother, you get a little bit of confidence. And two, they obviously train together. And he's obviously having some success to think that. If they're training together and Ilya's constantly tossing his ass around and smacking him around and making him look stupid, there's no way that he would believe in his soul that he could beat him. And that doesn't affect this breakdown. That was just a fun little anecdote. The reality is Aleksandre Topuria is a good fighter. Him and Ilya grew up wrestling their entire lives. They started with Greco-Roman wrestling and then obviously expanded their horizons. He's got good striking. He's much more creative than Ilya. Lots of spinning back kicks, lots of activity. He also fights with a chip on his shoulder. He comes in angry. He bombs away. He's looking to take your head off. He's not quite as buttoned up, but he does have a ton of power. He moves forward. He's not afraid to engage. He has one loss on his record. That was up 20 pounds, up 2 weight classes. And he still did pretty well before ultimately he was just completely gassed and couldn't move that dude around. That was also 10 years ago. The biggest question mark about Aleksandre Topuria is his inactivity. He's Ilya's older brother. He has less than half the fights, but he's been fighting longer. He's very inactive, large years off between, and it's not really injury related. He's just not that active. So I don't know if he's here now because there's an opportunity to make some money, or if he's here now because things are settled in the right place. He's been focusing on his brother. Now he can focus on himself. I'm not quite sure, and there is a couple of question marks because of that inactivity. A lot of you are going to point out, oh, his record sucks. He hasn't fought anybody any good. You're right. He hasn't fought a ton of great people, but the people he did fight, he beat the absolute shit out of. So what do you want from the guy? He doesn't control who he fights. They put him in front, and he just beats the shit out of him. Then we have Colby Thicknesse. Colby Thicknesse, or Thicknesse, is stepping up on short notice. Topuria was already on this card. A couple days ago, about a week ago, Colby stepped up on short notice. He's Alec Volkanovski's training partner. He's also, he's got a decent record. He's undefeated. But you watch the tape, it's like, this guy's undefeated? He's kind of a skinny, lanky, just guy. Doesn't really have power in his hands, not wildly fast, not incredibly technical on the feet. Takedowns are okay. They're not amazing. Colby's a really tough guy that clearly has high-level training partners. He can have some power because he literally just leaps in with his punches, like just wha-boom. It's not just like dance around power. It's like power because he put his entire body into it and jumped forward. Colby could potentially get some wins at the UFC level, but if I'm looking at these two guys, one of them is very clearly fast, athletic, has a lifetime of combat sports. The other one, unfortunately, is Colby Thicknesse. Then we have Bruna Brasil and Cong Wang. Everybody's gut reaction here is Cong Wang's a fraud. She was exposed in her last fight against Gabriela Fernandez. Fraud check, fraud check, fraud check. And while there's a little bit of truth to that, she was a minus 1,200 favorite, and she ended up getting subbed in the second round. It's also with a grain of salt that should be looked at. First of all, you're going to see submission. And if you didn't see that fight, you'll assume, Cong Wang, high-level kickboxer, moved from kickboxing to MMA, can't defend a takedown, was taken down and submitted. That's not what happened. It's actually worse. She was dropped with a head kick out of nowhere and then submitted. So the bad news is she got dropped and she was supposed to be the better striker. The good news is I personally think she still has very good takedown defense. But she is a high-level kickboxer. She's got incredible power in her hands. Very clean technique. She's beaten Valentina Shevchenko in straight kickboxing. Doesn't take very long to find that video online. So the takedown defense is going to matter very, very much in this matchup. She's taking on Bruna Brasil. Bruna Brasil is going to need takedowns to win this fight. I don't see her winning a striking match. I just don't. And obviously, Gabriela Fernandez dropped Cong Wang. But Gabriela Fernandez is also a high-level striker who hits like a freight train. She was a kickboxer as well. It's not like she just came in here and, she was a high-level kickboxer who was big, strong, and ended up landing a kick after getting beat up for about a round and a half. Bruna Brasil is a good fighter as well. She's got some decent power in her hand. She's a solid striker, but she doesn't have that high-level, super clean striking to go off of. She likes to march forward. She'll throw a lot at you, and she'll try to close that distance, and she may work in some takedowns. Her takedowns are not great. They're there. She has them. But they're not like beautiful shoot a double type takedowns. They're very like, let me grab your hips and try to trip your leg and pull it over takedowns. I call them BJJ takedowns. Bruna Brasil is decent. She's not a bad fighter at all. She is at Fighting Nerds. Everybody just wants to make, she's at Fighting Nerds, she's at Fighting. Just being at a gym doesn't make you like this spectacular fighter. And I understand Fighting Nerds is doing really well right now. But it's the core of the Fighting Nerds team that's doing really well. It's Kyle Barallo. It's Mauricio Ruffy. It's, who's the dude that smokes cigarettes? Like, it doesn't matter. Jean Silva. It's that crew of people that are doing really well. Bruna Brasil is good. She's well-rounded. She certainly can win this fight, but I think Cong Wang's going to win. With all of that being said, I'm not putting either one in my lineup. Cong Wang's too expensive. I think she actually learned a little bit of a lesson in her last fight. She was coming in, had way too much confidence, thought she was invincible, ultimately got dropped and then submitted, lost that fight. So I think she comes into this less aggressive, not chasing, just be technical, defend the takedowns, and piece up Bruna. So I don't think Cong Wang's going to get a finish. Therefore, I don't think she's going to be worth her very high salary. Bruna Brasil can certainly win this fight. You will need some exposure to her in DraftKings lineups because if she comes forward and all of a sudden her wrestling isn't BJJ takedowns and she's shooting clean doubles, well, now all of a sudden Bruna Brasil can win this fight. I am going to pick Cong Wang. I think the takedown defense will be good enough, and I think she's the better striker. I actually think that the losing of her last fight might be the best thing that's happened to her in her UFC career. Hopefully, she makes adjustments. All right, I was too aggressive. This is MMA, not kickboxing. And if she isn't as aggressive and overly committed, then she's not as exposed to random head kicks. So I'm going to pick Cong Wang. I'm not putting Cong Wang in my lineup. Bruna Brasil, you should have some exposure to her in some lineups because she could come in here as an underdog, as she did in her last fight, and grind out a win. Does she score 100-something points? No. But 81 points as a dog in her last fight, this fight could look almost identical. So I would definitely have a little bit of exposure on that side. I'm not going to spend the Cong Wang money because I don't think she's going to win by finish. Then we have Tom Nolan taking on Viacheslav Borshchev. This is another interesting breakdown. Tom Nolan is a pretty good fighter. He's long, he's lean, he's a good striker. I've compared him to Corey Sandhagen in the past, mostly just like his like slurched shoulders and how he strikes. He is accurate, he is technical, but he also has no problem just getting into a brawl. You're going to see, he was knocked out by Nicholas Mata. Two things. One, Nicholas Mata hits crazy hard. And two, I've seen Tom Nolan eat some giant right hands and be fine. So I don't necessarily think he's chinny, even though Nicholas Mata was able to get to his chin. He does have this win over Martinez. That was a pretty quick win. It is what it is. And then we just watched him piece up Alex Reyes. Alex Reyes, it's not necessarily a win that you could like, look at me, I beat Alex Reyes. I mean, the guy had a blood disease, was out for 4 years. Like, it is what it is. So I'm still quite not sold on Tom Nolan and who he is or can be, but he is a long, lean striker that has some power, and he's not afraid to scrap. He is taking on Viacheslav Borshchev. Viacheslav Borshchev is a very, very good striker. He's a high-level striker. In fact, he's the Team Alpha Male, the Uriah Faber camp striking coach. He was a high-level kickboxer. Then he came over to MMA. And if you run through his fight history, it was basically anybody that could take him down could have some success. And then all of a sudden, Chase Hooper dropped him. And that's when people were like, uh-oh, what's going on with Viacheslav. And obviously, Chase Hooper dropping him tells you a couple things. One, Chase has got a little more power than we thought. Two, Viacheslav might be a little chinny. But also, let's think about who Chase Hooper is. And Viacheslav was preparing for a grappler and probably wasn't worried about strikes coming his way, because who the hell thought Chase Hooper would drop him? So I do think getting dropped by Chase Hooper says more about the stylistic matchup and the preparation than potentially about who Viacheslav is as a fighter right now. He did just beat James Yontop. It wasn't the greatest performance of all time because Yontop is essentially a punching bag, and he didn't score a lot of points. I think Viacheslav wins this fight. The reality is, I think it's mostly a kickboxing match, and Viacheslav will be the better kickboxer. That's how I came to this conclusion. With that being said, I don't think Viacheslav's going to score a lot of points because I don't think he's going to finish Tom Nolan. And I think it might look like the James Yontop fight. And he only scored 69 points there. So Viacheslav's going to be the pick because he's the better kickboxer, and this should be a kickboxing match. But Viacheslav is older, slower, really only boxing and not kickboxing anymore. And all of a sudden, he's not as dangerous as he used to be. I still think he can win this fight, not touching him in DraftKings Fantasy. That takes us to Gabriel Santos versus Jack Jenkins. Gabriel Santos, big favorite here. I will say, waiting for the weigh-ins can be important at times because he's so big. Gabriel Santos is a much larger fighter than Jack Jenkins. And I was surprised to see such a humongous size difference. I just assumed they'd be about the same size because on paper they look about the same size. And that's where stats can be a little deceiving. But Gabriel Santos, it's like somebody lied on their stats. Either Gabriel lied down or Jack lied up. Somebody's lying on their stats because on paper, they're about the same. And then in reality, Gabriel Santos was much larger at that face-off. Gabriel Santos is an aggressive fighter. He's going to charge forward. He'll throw big 1-2s. And when you're all the way backed up to the cage, he's going to rip you to the ground, try to work in some takedowns, look to ground and pound, maybe submit you. He's not technical, but he does throw fast. He throws with power. He can be hittable. I think he has a negative striking differential, so he's hit more often than he hits his opponents. But he's a good fighter. He's aggressive, and he is not afraid to absolutely mix it up. He's taking on Jack Jenkins. Jack Jenkins is a guy that will chop your leg. He's got great leg kicks, phenomenal leg kicks. He's literally broken people's legs before with those leg kicks. You're going to see this loss to Chepe. I mean, it was in the second round. It felt like Chepe was going to win that fight. We picked Chepe to win that fight, but he broke his arm. That KO TKO, he literally broke his arm. Chepe took him down. He braced. His arm went, and that was the end of the fight. So you can't just look at the outcome and, oh, well, Chepe smoked him. Chepe's a good wrestler. So is Gabriel Santos. It's not quite what happened. Yes, Chepe was having success, took him down, but it was the arm break that did him in. Jack Jenkins is a pretty good striker. He's got very real power, specifically in his kicks. He also will shoot some takedowns. We focus very much on the striking, but he has 9 takedowns in his UFC career. Takedown defense is questionable, though. We just had Herbert Burns take him down twice. Here's another comment section story for you. Herbert Burns, in this breakdown, we said Herbert Burns took down Jack Jenkins 2 times. And we used that as like, hey, Jack Jenkins might not be that guy. He didn't have the success against an absolute quitter bum in Herbert Burns that he should have. And then there was like a 2-paragraph comment that was like, getting taken down twice, but you pop right back up, doesn't matter. The takedowns don't matter. There was only 2 minutes of control. Couple of things for you, pal. And then he was like, why don't you explain that? And he said some other nonsense. And then I responded back with some smart-ass comment because that's what I do. And then people were like, that's bad response. First of all, eat shit. My breakdown's in the video. You agree with it or you don't? Now I'm supposed to spend hours replying to each and to get the fuck out. That's not happening. But here's the reality of it. Your point, Mr. Anonymous comment person, was who cares if Jack was taken down twice if he popped right back up? In the same sentence, you said he gave up only 2 minutes of control time. Well, a fight is 15 minutes. 2 minutes of 15 minutes is about 15%. So 15% of the fight, Jack Jenkins was on his back. Getting taken down means a lot, even if you pop right back up, because that means the other fighter was able to dictate where this fight went. Jack did not want to be taken down, yet he was. Yet an absolute quitter in Herbert Burns, and I know that's insulting, but go watch Herbert Burns fights, was able to dictate where this fight went on multiple occasions and had 15% of the entire fight he was in control. So it did matter that Jack Jenkins, the minus 1,000 favorite, went to a decision with somebody who notably quits, was taken down twice by that same person, was then controlled for 15% of the fight from that same person. That all matters. I'm sorry if my breakdown wasn't detailed enough for you and that you may disagree. But that's the beauty of this sport. We all can disagree and have fun breaking down these fights and then watch them live. That's why we love this sport so much, because it's not a team sport. It's 1 versus 1, and we will find out at the end of the day how that goes. The comments will take years off your life, guys. Like literal years off your life. Gabriel Santos wins this fight. I do think this fight is closer than these salaries indicate, because I think Jack Jenkins is good. I think he can sort of chop down that tree, slow down Gabriel Santos. But if Jack Jenkins has that same trash takedown defense he had against Herbert Burns, he's going to have a tough outing, and he is going to be taken down, and it's going to be a rough night for him. I'm going to pick Gabriel Santos here, especially after the weigh-ins and seeing how big he is. Then we have Francisco Prado taking on Jake Matthews. Francisco Prado is a pretty good fighter. He is moving up in weight. This is at welterweight. He's a lightweight. A lot of people want to point that out, and it may matter. Weigh-ins, he didn't look particularly small or huge. Just they looked about the same. Obviously, Jake Matthews looked a little thicker, a little more solid, but that's just how Jake looks. And Francisco, even at 155, didn't look thick or solid. Francisco Prado has a head made of cement. He's a powerful striker. He comes in hot. He does have looping strikes. He's got head kicks. He's got a Muay Thai clinch. He's got insane power, at least at 155 pounds. At 170, we'll go ahead and we'll find out. He can grapple as well. It's not his plan A, but it's there. He'll shoot doubles, and if he's strong enough, he'll pick you up, he'll scoop you, and he'll dump you down. He did slow down as the Zellhuber fight went on, but the reality is that was an absolute back-and-forth war. I believe that was at elevation. And that was at 155 pounds. Moving up to 170 could be good or bad, and we'll all find out together. Either Francisco Prado won't need to cut all that weight, obviously, and he will have plenty of cardio because maybe the weight cut was the issue, or we've seen this before where you're carrying around extra weight and you actually slow down faster because you're used to being lighter and quick and nimble, and now you're a little heavier. The jump between 155 and 170 is 15 pounds. That's 10% more in body weight. So we'll see how that goes. But Francisco Prado is a good fighter and a very hard guy to finish. He is taking on Jake Matthews. Jake Matthews is a funny guy because he's not great and he's not particularly dangerous. Oh, he beat Flowers, Darius Flowers. Oh, okay. And when I say beat, I mean finished. He finished Paulo Fiallo. That guy was the most finishable dude on the planet. Therefore was cut. So then when he fought some actual durable real fighters, he did have success. I'm not trying to say Jake Matthews has not had success. What I am trying to say is he's not a finisher. So I'm not going to put him in my lineup at $8,800, but I am going to pick him. He's a well-rounded guy. He's got okay takedowns. He's got pretty good grappling. He works angles pretty well. He has no problem mixing up body shots, then coming to the head. So I like Jake Matthews, and I think Jake Matthews win this fight. I'm going directly against Jacob's underdog lock of the week. I'm not doing so with insane conviction. Francisco Prado can certainly win this fight. I'm just worried that Jake's going to go all in on the wrestling. And while we haven't really seen that, the wrestling is there. And if he does go all in on the wrestling, let's say Francisco has some success early, super fast, touching up Jake's face. Jake's like, I don't need this. I'm going to wrestle my ass off. That's where things could take a turn. But he's not exactly a finisher. So I'm not going to spend the $8,800 on him in DraftKings Fantasy. I think this line's a little bit inflated because of this Michael Morales loss. Michael Morales, obviously, as we all know, great-looking dude, but undefeated. He's a guy quietly building a spectacular resume. But Mike Morales also isn't destroying people. He did just destroy Neil Magny, but for the most part, he's not destroying people. He's just being more technical, cleaner, and winning fights that way. And Jake Matthews went to a decision in a fight where he was supposed to get absolutely sparked. Then he just beat Philip Rowe. But Philip Rowe's a guy that just makes he's got horrific fight IQ. Philip Rowe's a guy that has great striking. If he stays on the outside and pot shots, he can win. But instead, for some reason, he clinches, gives up opportunities, and it's a whole thing. I think Jake Matthews can win this fight. I think he can work in the takedowns. He's going to be the bigger guy. If he makes Prado carry his weight, he can have some success. I don't think he's worth $8,800. Then we have Jimmy Crute and Rodolfo Bellato. Jimmy Crute retired. Jimmy Crute hasn't won a fight since 2020. 2020. Lost to Smith. Lost to Hill. A draw with Menefield in a fight that he was doing pretty well. And then lost to Menefield in that rematch. Jimmy Crute has not won a fight since 2020. And that frustration led to him retiring. After Alonzo Menefield submitted him in his last fight, he put down the gloves. He's like, I'm done. I retire. But now, conveniently, there's a pay-per-view at home. And all of a sudden he says, I'm too good at this. I'm too good at this to retire. So the question becomes, is Jimmy Crute now the Al Iaquinta of the world, where he's only showing up for a quick paycheck and to fight at home? Obviously, he's training. But is this the resurgence of a Jimmy Crute career? Or is he just showing up because he gets to make the walk at home in a giant arena, live out his dream effectively? And those are two very different things, because if this is the resurgence and he has been grinding all day, every day, for the year and a half that he's been retired, okay, he just took a break. Maybe he healed up and he'll look better than ever. Or is he just sort of living his life? He's got another job doing God knows what. They said, hey, we're going to be in your hometown. You want to be on a pay-per-view? And he said, hell yeah, I do. Of course I do. You're going to give me 50 grand and I get to fight in an arena at home and be a hero for a couple of weeks? Yeah, I'll do that. But he's not quite prepared. That's the giant question mark. Look at it. Look how quick a bang. That was a whoop. If I had good editing skills, when I did this and said, that's the giant question mark, I would draw it on the screen. And it would be like awesome. And you guys would be like, fire edit, bro. So I'm going to become a premium member today. That edit was fire. But unfortunately, I can't do this. So sorry. If you want to be premium, that would be helpful. Jimmy Crute, style-wise, decent fighter. He does have some random power in his hands, and he can grapple. He's a grappler. That's what his thing is. He can grapple. He'll come forward, averages 5 takedowns per fight. That kind of means he can't hold people down, but he still has some success. Again, giant question. Is Jimmy Crute here for the long haul or just a good time? And he is taking on Rodolfo Bellato. And I'm glad there's not a picture of him, because if there was a picture of him, all I would hear is how him and I look the same when I actually look like Ben Affleck. Rodolfo Bellato, heavy-handed grappler. He'll come forward. He'll bomb, just try to make it a slug fight. And then when you're backed up to the cage, there's nowhere else to go, he'll try to get some takedowns, drag you to the ground, work from there. He's a big guy. He hits hard. He's heavy. And I understand why he's the favorite here. We got a questionable fighter in Jimmy Crute and what the hell his deal is. We've got Rodolfo Bellato, who's just like a Neanderthal coming forward, fee-fi-fo, fumming his way forward and shooting takedowns, dragging you to the ground. But if you watch this Ihor Potieria fight, first of all, Rodolfo looked stiff. He was lumbering. He was slow and overall looked pretty bad. I'm actually going to pick Jimmy Crute. And I hate to do it. I hate to do it because I don't know the deal with Jimmy Crute. Is he prepared? Is he not prepared? Is he taking this serious, or is he just showing up for a quick check and fight at home? I don't know. If I was positive Jimmy Crute was grinding his ass off, he's all healed up, and he just needed that break mentally and physically, I'd be very confident. I'm not quite as confident. But a lot of the Jimmy Crute pick is coming from two things. One, he's had the higher level experience, and he actually at one point in time was not a bad fighter. And two, Rodolfo Bellato in his last fight looked horrible. Oh, he got a win? He looked horrible. Like a horrible, bad, terrible, horrible, miserable, bad. He wasn't fast. He wasn't athletic. He didn't have cardio. He was lumbering. He's like horrible. Now, will just a giant ogre of a man come forward and rip Jimmy Crute to the ground and finish him? Maybe. That's why I'm not touching this fight. I'm not touching it. I'm leaving this alone on all fronts. It is what it is. Can't be confident in every single fight. Then we have the featured fight of the evening. Thaleson Teixeira taking on Justin Tafa. This is a weird fight for the pay-per-view viewers at home. This is a spectacular fight for the people in the arena, because Justin Tafa is a local hero. And he's going to come out, he's going to get a big pop, the crowd's going to go crazy, and he's going to do what he does. But he's going to have Thaleson Teixeira on the other side of the octagon, and that's what's going to be interesting here, because Thaleson Teixeira is a mass guy. He's 6'8", 6'7", depending on what website you look at. He comes forward, He's pretty fast. He's pretty powerful. He's pretty athletic. He doesn't have great technique, though. He is a good grappler. He might even be a black belt on the ground. But on the feet, he's just bombing. He's just so huge and so big and so powerful. He just bombs. But he also gets hit a lot. Like a lot. He gets hit a lot. And so far, his chin has been good enough to not be an issue. But he's going to be fighting somebody where that chin might be an issue. The other problem with Thaleson Teixeira is tons of wins, tons of finishes, but we just don't know how good he is or is not because his opponents have kind of sucked. One of them, maybe even the best one he's ever fought, his record was 4-16. He's taking on Justin Tafa. Justin Tafa doesn't have the greatest MMA record. He doesn't have the greatest UFC record, but he's a guy that comes forward, high-level kickboxing, and he will just lay it on you. If he gets his leg kicks going, he can snap your leg in half. If he gets the hands going, he's just throwing bricks, and he's got a brick on his head. He's a very hard guy to get rid of. The only real way he's losing fights is if he is taken down over and over and over, like Carl Williams did, or if you dance around on him like Jared Vanderaa did. If Jared Vanderaa was able to pot shot, stay on the outside, just volume, and that's how he beat Justin Tafa. If Thaleson Teixeira is going to stay on the outside, he could win. If Thaleson Teixeira comes in looking like a high-level wrestler like Carl Williams did, then he can win. But if Thaleson Teixeira fights Justin Tafa the exact same way he fought his Contender Series fight, he's going to get put out. Half those shots that landed on Thaleson on the Contender Series coming from Justin Tafa would knock his head right off his body. I am going to pick Thaleson Teixeira. I'm going to pick the younger, faster, more athletic guy here. But there are too many question marks for me to spend hard-earned money on that guy. We don't know how good or bad he is. We just haven't seen the body of work to make that determination. At least with Justin, we know what we're going to get. High-level kickboxer who's going to bomb away. This will be a fun fight. It'll be an entertaining fight, but by no means should this be a fight that determines if you make money or lose money. Then we have the co-main event of the evening. Tatiana Suarez taking on Weili Zhang. I'm not here to convince you of anything because the people on the Tatiana side are squarely on the Tatiana side. What I will say, first of all, we had a debate of how good-looking she is or isn't. I'm curious your thoughts there. Second of all, she's one of the best wrestlers in the division. Probably the best wrestler in this division, certainly actively. And she is undefeated in her career. And she's got quite the resume. Let's look at some of these names. Oh, she beat champion Alexa Grasso, beat champion Carla Esparza, beat champion Jessica Andrade, beat decent wrestler Montana De La Rosa. This isn't Amanda Nunes. That is her wife. Beat her too. The problem is, she was beating these people in interesting circumstances. We have seen Alexa Grasso get taken down and controlled. We just saw it. Valentina Shevchenko just did it. She also did this in 2018 before Alexa Grasso found her own. Carla Esparza was always an okay wrestler that if she could dictate, she wins, and if she can't, she won't. So obviously, a little bit better of a wrestler, beat her. That's not a surprise there. The Nunes fight was kind of a back and forth. Nunes didn't have a ton of success. But she did hang, and she was tough, and she was well-trained, good submission defense, so Tatiana Suarez had to work for it. The De La Rosa fight, it's very similar to Carla Esparza. If De La Rosa can get the takedowns, she can win. If she can't, then she loses. And obviously, she wasn't going to be able to take down a much better wrestler than Tatiana Suarez, and Jessica Andrade honestly kind of sucks on the ground. Jessica Andrade did defend a bunch of takedowns there. So Tatiana Suarez is a very good fighter, don't get me wrong. But she's also wildly inactive, and a lot of that has to do with some very real medical issues. This long layoff between 2023 and 2019, she had cancer in her neck and had multiple surgeries, and her comeback is amazing. It is amazing. But that layoff, what that does to your body, while it didn't matter in the De La Rosa fight or the Andrade fight, she is going to be in an absolute war in this fight. If Tatiana Suarez can get the wrestling going, if she can grind and get the takedowns, she can 100% win this fight. But if she gets dragged into deep water and put to work, none of us know. Because the longest fight she ever had was this Nunes fight. We're not going to count the Pereira one. Was the Nunes fight. And that fight was kind of not a lot of activity, just tons of control time. If we look at Weili is one of the most accomplished fighters this division has ever had. You're going to see the only person she really didn't beat was Rose Namajunas, and I thought she beat her in the rematch. I thought that was a bad decision. I thought she beat Rose. The big issue or the concern I have, is her takedown defense. She's listed at only 50% takedown defense. A lot of people have taken her down, including Yan Janan, including Rose Namajunas. But as Jacob pointed out in the video that we did on Tuesday, shooting blind takedowns is very different than setting up takedowns because your striking is so good. Rose is a very good striker. Yan Janan is a very good striker. So hiding a takedown behind clean technical striking is a much easier takedown to get than just diving. Tatiana Suarez doesn't have great striking, so she's going to be diving. Is her wrestling good enough to get it to the ground anyway? Probably. What I suspect will happen is Tatiana Suarez will have a couple of takedowns early, have some success. Wei Li is an incredibly high-level athlete. She has been here before. She has been in wars. Wei Li is well-trained, well-coached, well-disciplined. I think Wei Li will get taken down a few times, especially early, and she'll be completely composed. She'll have phenomenal cardio. She'll make Tatiana work, and I think Wei Li will slowly take over this fight. This could kind of look like the Merab-Umar fight. What happened in that first round? Umar looked like he was going to blow through Merab. He was the better wrestler. He was the better striker. It was like, oh my God. And then Merab, that cardio was there. He started to take over, started to frustrate. Obviously, there was a broken hand and other factors, but you get the point. Tatiana Suarez might have some early success in this fight, should have early success in this fight. But the championship experience, the cardio, the high-level work that she's been putting in for many, many years will certainly pay off for Wei Li. I'm going to pick Wei Li here. Pick your side, though. One of these two women should be in your DraftKings fantasy lineup. Pick one, and they should be in your lineup for sure. 100% without question. And then we have the main event of the evening, Dricus du Plessis taking on Sean Strickland in the rematch. Here's a look at that first fight. He beat Sean Strickland. He scored 119 points. He landed 137 significant strikes. He had 6 takedowns, only 2 minutes of control time. But it didn't matter because the takedowns were meaningful. He come forward, bomb, 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 big takedown. Got him to the ground. Another big takedown. Another big takedown. So yeah, Sean popped right back up and Dricus wasn't able to do much with it. But getting the takedowns in and of itself is an act. I don't like the way things are going where people say takedowns don't matter. Takedowns do matter because that means I was able to do something to you that you didn't want to happen. To me, a takedown matters very much. Now, if I shoot 40 and I only get one, that one doesn't negate the 40 that were defended. But if I get 6 takedowns over the course of a fight and I'm landing with success, that all matters. And I think Dricus and his extra chromosome ability to come forward and just push people around as sloppy as he does it, I think he's going to do it again. That's just... We have broken down Dricus du Plessis 100 times. He breaks down his own tape. He looks at his own fights that people try to be like, oh, look at this beautiful setup. And he literally is like, there's no setup. I was just charging forward, trying to rip this guy to the ground. And there is something to be said about just that wild, come forward, but in phenomenal shape with power in his hands and decent rest. Like, nothing's clean, nothing's smooth. Everything's aggressive, hard-nosed, in your face. He had Sean Strickland backing up that last fight. And I think he's going to do it again in this fight. If we take a look at Sean Strickland, so obviously he lost to Dricus. He landed more significant strikes, 40 more, or almost 40 more. The question becomes, what's more important, 40 significant strikes or 6 takedowns and 2 minutes of control? I personally lean 6 takedowns and 2 minutes of control. He was able to move another human being off their feet and put them on the ground. That, to me, matters more than over 25 minutes. And I know the Sean Strickland fans absolutely hate that take. And that's why we love this sport. And that's why we have a rematch. It was a very close fight. I think this one is also close. I think it's fun. Sean Strickland is a good fighter. The problem is, unless you bring the fight to him, he's not really going to bring the fight to you. We just saw that with the Paulo Costa fight. This was an absolute snooze fest. You're going to see, wow, 182 significant strikes. It was a snooze fest, dude. It was a snooze fest. He stands there. He lifts his knee up in the air. Just, but. There's volume. Sure, there's volume, but it's not aggressive power. It's not aggressive. It's just but. Now, contender Sean Strickland and champion Sean Strickland might be different people. The Sean Strickland that fought Dricus in the first fight was very worried about losing his belt. This Sean Strickland wants to win the belt. Maybe that matters. Maybe he will be more aggressive. Maybe he'll march forward, dance forward, stay in Dricus' face. The problem is, if he's marching forward and chasing and trying to connect, that's when Dricus is going to shoot. I personally think Dricus wins this fight again. If we look at the first fight, though, Sean Strickland scored 71 points. 71 points in a loss. You might want to double this main event up. If you think this fight is basically an exact replica of the last fight, you might want to double it up. Even in a loss, Dricus will score well with some takedowns and volume. Even in a loss, Sean Strickland will score well with incredible volume. You might want to double it up. I'm going to pick Dricus. I probably have both of them in my lineup. Guys, that's the breakdown. Check out all the tools and everything else that we have to offer, including the event simulator. The event simulator simulates fights using all sorts of data points 100,000 times. Then it takes those 100,000 simulations and it converts it into DraftKings fantasy lineups that you can use to make some money. Here is our very first winning ticket from the event simulator release. We released this last Friday, less than 24 hours before UFC Saudi Arabia. JLB here in the Discord went ahead and used it. JLB in the Discord reached out and said, I hit the optimal score. And obviously optimal is quite literally the best you can do. That's the best possible lineup that could be built for those circumstances, and it worked for him. Check out the event simulator. If you're a premium member now, it's just included in your membership. If you're not a premium member, premium membership is only freaking $10 for an entire month. You have full access to every single thing that we do. The picks, the bets, the tools, everything for $10 an entire month. Today is the 7th of February. You will have full access to the 7th of March. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top.